What's up, guys? This is me, and I'm coming to you with another deck profile today. Just like this is the regular one. The last one I did say was the contest winner. So this week I also wanted to do another deck profile that was a little bit more serious, a little bit more competitive. And this week I want to do Heraldics. I really like this deck. It's actually very consistent, and it has a lot of explosive plays, and I think it's very underrated. It is a rank 4 spam deck, and one that does not have to involve Trick Clown. As you can see, I do have Hat Tricker in here, but I'll explain that in a second. But in general, the deck works very well, and it does what it's supposed to do, and it does it very consistently. So again, I'll just go into it. Start with 3 Heraldic Beast Amphisbaena. This guy is a 1-card engine all on its own. It really does get the deck going. It can also become a 2500 beater on its own and get cards in the graveyard. If you don't know how Heraldic Beasts work, the graveyard is essentially their second hand. They get a lot of effects and a lot of bonuses by getting cards into the graveyard as soon as possible, with the added bonus of it being a very rank 4 centric deck. If you Amphisbaena, in order to special summon them, you can discard another Heraldic Beast monster. Also, you can discard Heraldic Beast monster, and it gains 800 attack. So if, for example, you get Vanities or on your opponent's side of the field, you'd be like, oh, okay, I'll just normal summon it, discard a Leo, get a search, and then you have a 2500 beater to deal with. So it's a very interesting card, and it's a very good card for the deck. Speaking of Heraldic Beast Leo, this guy is the searcher for the deck. During the end phase of the turn that he's normal summoned, he's destroyed. However, whenever he's sent to the graveyard, you can add a Heraldic Beast from your deck to your hand, except for himself, of course. This works fantastically well with Amphisbaena because it allows you to go into a rank 4 almost instantly. Amphisbaena, if you have him and Leo in your hand, you can special summon Amphisbaena by sending Leo to grave and then adding another Heraldic Beast to your hand. And then because you haven't used your normal summon that turn, you can normal summon the other Heraldic Beast and then go into a rank 4. If you go first, you're almost always want to go into number 18, just because and just summon it in defense mode, because it just sets the deck up so well, and just really once this hits grave, the deck just goes off. Heraldic Beast Aberconway. This is another must-have for the deck, and it's unfortunate. Some of its effects. It's more of like a restriction rather than an effect, but it is very useful in some recursion plays. If he's in the graveyard, you can banish another copy of himself from your graveyard to target one Heraldic Beast monster in your graveyard and add that target to your hand. This can be itself, obviously, but the problem with the card is that you have to have 2 Aberconways in your grave in order for the effect to happen. You can't just banish himself and then you can add any Heraldic Beast from your grave to the hand. It has to have at least 2, which does slow it down a lot. But regardless, it's still very essential to the deck, and you have to play it at 3. Otherwise, you only get 1 recursion, which is not enough ever. You need at least 2. I also play 3 Heraldic Beast Unicorn. I like having 3. Sometimes I wish I only had 2, just because Heraldic Beast Basilisk is sometimes a better card. I'll just look that up for you guys. It's this guy right here. After damage calculation, destroy any opponent's monster that battles this card. It's a very defensive / offensive card. If you think about it, it can be just set in defense position, or you can put in an attack and just attack into something, and it won't matter. No matter what their card is going. But I like having the triple unicorn just because it lets you recur Patriarch and allows you to recur Genome Heritage if you need to get a 2400 beater. Also, it is very useful for getting this guy out, and I'll explain that at the end of the video, just because it's not really relevant right now, but it will be relevant once we hit the Monarchs format. Moving on, 2 Heraldic Beast Twin-Headed Eagle. I played 2 of this guy just simply because it's such a powerful card. I want to see it a little bit more often than a lot of people usually do, just because it works very well with Dark Rebellion Xyz Dragon. If you don't know what this guy does, you should. You can detach 2 Xyz materials from the card and target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls. Its attack becomes half its current attack, and if it does, this card gains that lost attack. So You can activate that as many times as you want per turn, and it helps that Twin-Headed Eagle can banish itself and reattach the materials he sent to the graveyard, and then suddenly he's a 4K beater or more. So it works so well in the deck, and it allows you to revitalize some cards that normally you wouldn't be able to, like 101, Castell, some of the very, very more powerful rank 4s. Moving on, I'm playing 2 Denko Sekka. I don't play a lot of set back row. I only play 4 in the main deck, as you can see. And I feel Denko Sekka is very, very necessary. This deck is a little bit combo-ish. It's somewhere in the middle. And the fact that the back row can really, really hinder this deck and cause a lot of problems. This is why I put Denko Sekka in. Once I normal summon this, like, it's over. Typically, it's just over. My opponent can't do anything, especially if they're a very back row heavy deck. This is more of a locals level type thing, because typically when you get into more regionals and above, you see less and less like heavy back row, unless you're playing something like Tellers or a Trap Tricks deck or something along those lines. So but Denko Sekka definitely, I feel like, is very, very important for keeping this deck alive and allowing you to keep moving forward. I also play 2 Kage Tokage. It's just an instant rank 4. It's also searchable by King of the Feral Imps, so I feel like it's very warranted. I played 2 Goblinberg, and the reason why I played 2 Goblinberg, there were 2 other cards that could possibly fill a slot, and that was Photon Thrasher and Heroic Challenger Assault Halberd. And quite honestly, I was very close to switching this to Halberd, just because Halberd is a normal summon, very with a high attack that does piercing, as well as being able to special summon it. It's the good middle ground between the 2 cards. However, I like the fact that Goblinberg can easily get around cards like Bottomless Trap Hole, just because he has a little less attack, and he does cause some mistiming issues with some other cards, that like the when versus if thing. So Goblinberg, I feel like, is just a little bit more warranted right now. So I just at the moment I'm playing 2 of him. I also play double Performance Hat Trigger, and it's because it lets me get into Masquerade more easily and allows me to play turn 2. This deck usually this deck needs to go first. It's better for the deck if it does. Hat Tricker just allows you to play it in the case that you do go second. Yes, I'm not playing the rest of the Perform Mages, but quite honestly, I like this build a lot more than a Perform Mage Heraldic deck, just because it's slightly more consistent. But Hat Tricker, I feel like, should be kept. Another card I was thinking about playing is Glow Up Bulb. That is definitely a card that can be played if you feel like it. The problem with the card is that it's very hard to get Naturi Beast off, just simply because it's hard to recur a couple of the cards. But you do play a lot of Earths, particularly Leo, Goblinberg, and Hat Tricker. So, yeah, I feel like that is warranted. If you also wanted to, you could play the Brilliant Fusion version of this, because you do play a lot of quite a few light monsters, particularly Unicorn, and this is a good card to have engraved anyway. So and that gives you that extra normal summon you may or may not need. So that's another way to play this deck if you so choose. Moving on, I play 3 Heralds Reborn. This is a monster reborn for Heraldics. It is so ridiculously overpowered, and it lets me just really hit the ground running in case I run into some problems. And just really, really go, go, go. It's such a good card. It's such a good card, and it's just the fact that it's just a special summon. There's no cost to it. There's no weight. It just makes Call the Haunted kind of redundant to play in this deck. I also play 2 Advanced Heraldry Art. This card is freaking amazing. Again, as I said, this deck loves the graveyard, and this card just makes it even better, just because it lets you Xyz summon with cards in the graves. As I said, this deck likes the graveyard. It considers it a second hand. So Advanced Heraldry Art is fantastic. I also play 3 Instant Fusion. I play 2 Nordens, so this is very useful. 3 MST, 1 Foolish, so I can get a search or a recursion from Unicorn or recursion from Aberconway, or even the effect of an Eagle, whatever the case might be. 1 Rhoda, so I can search out Goblinberg, and 1 Raigeki. For the traps, I play 2 Great Horn of Heaven, 1 Bottomless, 1 Solemn Warning. Obviously, the biggest problem right now is Pendulum Monsters in terms of what this deck can face. Cosmos, this deck doesn't suffer against it. It's just a difficult matchup. Again, it's Cosmos. They're fast. They're ridiculous. They're tier 1. having these mained is not a terrible thing whatsoever against them, but in all honesty, this is just the best defense I can possibly put up against uh what's it called? Again, the pendulum deck. So I really like this lineup. I'm not playing vanities because this deck likes to special summon quite a bit. So that's the problem with that. Moving on, for the extra deck, I play 2 Elder Entity Norden, 2 Heraldry Patriarch. Once this card hits the graveyard, you can send 2 Heraldic Beast Monsters from your deck to the graveyard. Also, if you're playing Pepe or what's it called? Or even like Pendulum Magicians, or even the I can't think of the name. It's Magispectors. That's what it is. This card actually can really hurt them during either player's turn. If there are 2 or more monsters on the field with the same name, you can detach an disease material from this and choose one of those monsters, and then destroy all monsters on the field with the same name. Also, while this card is up on the field, your opponent cannot summon another monster with the same name as that target. So this really, really, really hurts. What's it called? Again, Magispectors, just simply because if they want to get out like rank 3 or rank 4, this really shuts them down, because then they can't summon those monsters back, and you can always recur the effect with Twin-Headed Eagle and really shut that deck down. So this card, and plus it is a generic card, so even if you're not playing Heraldics, this is not a bad card to have whatsoever, even if it's sided or whatever. So Heraldry Patriarch is definitely a good card. I also play one number 8 Heraldic King Genome Heritage. This is kind of the odd one out. It's like I use this card the least, maybe not the least. I think I used Emerald the least, which is quite odd. But now that I think about it, but Genome Heritage is, it's a little weird. Once returning, you can target one face-up Exesis monster your opponent controls. This card's name and original attack become that monster's name and current attack, and this card's effect become that monster's original effect. Then that monster's attack becomes 0. So essentially, it just becomes a copy. Also, that monster's effects are negated. So this card does have its uses. It's like a second Honor Arc, it's a second Castell, but it's really a reactive card, and that's the big problem with it. You have to be able to react with this card, and the fact that it absolutely requires you to have 2 Heraldic Beasts as material is not the best thing, and that's why I only play 1 of it. I also play 1 King the Feral Imps to Surge out Kage Tokage, 1/101. I go into this the most. 1 Castell, 1 Emerald, 1 Cowboy, 1 Ragnar Zero. This combos very well with Dark Rebellion, obviously. 1 Abyss Dweller, 1 Dark Rebellion, 1 Diamond Crab King. And the reason why I put this in here is because it's another boss monster along with Dark Rebellion, and it's also a good defensive card. The fact that it can switch from attack to defense very easily and very seamlessly is very useful, considering the fact that the top decks out right now, Cosmos being probably the best one at the moment. The fact that their best card has a 3,000 beater, Crab King, and the fact that Crab King has a 3,000 defense and he can get around bottomless is pretty good. So I would not take this out at the moment, but yeah, like it's decent enough for this deck. Also presents some sort of control in terms of controlling when you get Leo into the grave, because his effect can only activate once per turn. So that's another option as well. Finally, I play 1 number 104 Masquerade. This is just ridiculously great against Cosmos. The fact that you can send cards from the top of their deck to the graveyard, and you can also inflict damage to them just for activating effects during the battle phase, notably cards like Honest, or any of their ships effects when you destroy them, or anything with their lower levels if they try to special summon during the battle phase. Number 104 just shuts them down, and it's just such a great card. It's actually I consistently get this card out. So number 104 is amazing. Also, again, I wanted to talk about number C69, Heraldry Crest of Horror. The reason why I say this is going to be relevant for this deck in particular is because of Unicorn and a little card called Mega Monarch Zaborg. Hopefully I can look it up. Yes. Okay. So if you don't know what Zaborg does, you can tribute summon this card by tributing 1 tribute summon monster, like all the Mega Monarchs. And when he's tribute summon, you can target 1 monster in the field and destroy that target. Then if it was a light monster, both players send as many cards as possible from your extra deck to the graveyard, but not more than the original level or rank of the destroyed monster. If this card was tribute summoned by tributing a light monster, add this additional effect. You choose the cards your opponent sends to the graveyard. So, typically with Zaborg, they don't always tribute a light monster to get him out. Even in the new deck. However, with the new deck, that is going to be slightly more consistent just with the way that it plays. But Zaborg, or even way more consistent now that I think about it. But Zaborg, the fact that he can tribute himself or a level 4 or whatever, well, notably himself, and typically that's what happens, and then he just gets rid of more than half of the extra deck is ridiculous. And the fact that C69 is a 4000 beater and he's a rank 5, he fits under the clause of the levels or ranks whatever if Zaborg sends himself. So if Zaborg sends himself, which does happen quite a bit, you get to send C69 to the graveyard, and then if you have Unicorn in grave, you can banish Unicorn and special summon this guy out. Yes, his effects are negated, but the fact that he's a 4000k beater makes him very, very difficult to deal with, and that's why this deck has a little bit of ground coming up in the next couple months. I wouldn't say it would necessarily be tier 1, but it has a lot of potential of being a little bit dangerous. So thank you guys for watching this deck profile. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, guys, have a nice day.